Greetings, Porter County, and welcome to another edition of the PoCo Wellness Hour on WVLP 103.1 FM, your voice for local community radio and your show for health, community connection, and overall well-being. I'm Demetrius Lewis, Communications Manager for the Porter County Health Department. Here on the PoCo Wellness Hour, we like to shine a spotlight on the incredible health initiatives that are shaping our community and the powerful partnerships that make it all possible. From local organizations working to improve public health to the innovative programs led by the Porter County Health Department, this show is your guide to stay informed, inspired, and engaged on your wellness journey. So sit back, relax, and let's tune into today's conversation about building a healthier Porter County together. Now, joining me in studio today, we have another special guest. We have Amy Gilbert from the Chesterton Fire Department. Amy, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you so much for making an appearance on the PoCo Wellness Hour. Before we jump into all the services and the great things that are being done at the Chesterton Fire Department, let's talk a little bit about you, ma'am, if you don't mind. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you first became interested in being a firefighter and working in public safety?
Well, when I think back to how I started this journey, many years ago, I actually started my education journey as a teacher. I was looking to start as a PE teacher, started that journey in college, found out very quickly it just wasn't what I thought it would be. I had always grown up around the fire service a little bit with extended family, so it was one of those things that just always intrigued me. So after that first semester of college didn't work out, I enrolled in an EMT class. 18 years old, didn't know what I was doing, got into it and fell in love with it. Got a job immediately here in the county working on the ambulance as an EMT. Okay. And then from there, just wanted to build on it, entered into paramedic school right after that. Was very young when I started my career. And then I hit a point where I needed a bigger challenge. And that's when I looked to the fire service. On the ambulance, you have many challenges, but I needed something a little bit more, so I turned to the fire service, and that was kind of where my story started. After that point was 22 years ago, I joined the fire department.
Wow. Gotcha. So talk a little bit more about the steps that you took, whether, the education, the training, maybe you had some mentorship to kind of help you reach the role where you are now.
Training has changed a little bit for what it is today, but when I first started off, like I said, I enrolled in an EMT class. It was 8-9 months long, got that state certification, and then I got a nationally registered certification. So if I wanted to, I could have left the state and continued on with this career. But that class was very quick early on, and then I went to paramedic school, which was then another 2 years after that. Never really had any distinct mentorship that stuck out to me. It was just a gravitational pull that just kept me wanting to learn more, and just build on the knowledge that I had.
Understood. So what drew you to kind of work at the Chesterton Fire Department? Why didn't you take that opportunity to maybe leave the state?
My family is local. I grew up in the town of Chesterton, graduated from Chesterton High School, but I was also stationed for a long period of my career with the ambulance at the station in Chesterton. I knew those guys. I worked hand in hand, had a great relationship with them, and they actually encouraged me. They knew I wanted that challenge. They're like, come get on the department. So I originally got on as a volunteer because 20 plus years ago, that's how they hired. They hired from within their volunteer staff. Okay. So I got on as a volunteer, fell in love. 6 months later, took the career test, and then got hired on.
That is awesome. So during your journey, what has surprised you the most along your firefighting journey? What obstacles or anything has surprised you the most?
Obstacle-wise, my department, everyone would think, oh, female firefighter, that is a huge obstacle. Mm-hmm. My department welcomed me with open arms. I never felt that tug and pull if I had to prove myself or anything like that. I will find in the community, though, even to this day, there is still a standard and a stigma. I found as I moved up the ranks and became an officer on the truck, that was my job, was to deal one-on-one with the homeowner, the public, whatever the call may be, and people tend to gravitate still towards the male figure, even though I was the boss of that truck. So just the nature of the stigma behind firefighters are men, that was probably a little bit of a hurdle. Now in my position, I'm fine with it. It is what it is type thing. But the other thing that surprised me is, especially growing up in Chesterton, I knew it was a close-knit community, but then going on calls to people's houses that I knew was very surprising as to how often I was running into people that I knew.
That has got to be something, you're trying to rescue and save those people that you know that are closest to you. Like you said, you grew up in this area. So, I mean, you're a hometown kid, so to speak. You're a hometown hero, actually, if you want to put it out there.
We won't go that far. I no longer live in Chesterton. I live in Washington Township, still close by, but I did, going to school there. I now go into the schools and teach where I went to school, which is kind of a whole full circle moment, too.
Yeah, that's got to feel good.
It does.
Be able to have this kind of role where you're going out in the community where you grew up at. I mean, that's got to be something special.
Yes.
That's really awesome, Amy. I would imagine being a firefighter, you touched on this a little bit, it's got to be those difficult days. There's got to be some of those days where you just, palmed ahead a little bit. What keeps you motivated on those days?
Knowing that the person that is called for us, they're having a worse day than I am. It is their worst day. When you're calling 911, that is the worst day you are having. Yes, it affects us. It affects all of us differently. But knowing that I'm there to help that person on their worst day always kind of makes it a little bit better. Understood.
You're totally there to help. So is there a particular call or incident or a moment in your career that kind of stands out that was, especially meaningful to you?
I don't necessarily, not calls that were mean. I mean, yes, we always love those little kid calls or somebody, those good moments. I would probably say the most meaningful ones to me are when we're just out in the community and maybe we are on a call or finished a call and we might have a little kid that we just taught in the last week or two and they're like, hey, there's firefighter Amy or there's firefighter so-and-so, and they remember us and they remember what we told them. Those are the meaningful things, is what we're out there teaching, they're remembering.
Absolutely. Getting out in the community, facing the community.
Yes.
I understand that. Let's move to our second segment. Let's talk a little bit about the Chesterton Fire Department, the roles, services, some of your partnerships. So for the listeners out there who might not be familiar, can you talk a little bit about the structure of the Chesterton Fire Department as far as like the staffing? Do you accept volunteers? Are you looking for volunteers? Can we talk a little bit about that?
We are technically classified as a combination department, which is career and volunteer. Over the years, our volunteer staff has downsized drastically. When I got on the department 20 plus years ago, we had 30 volunteers. But the nature of the fire service and EMS and how calls are has just changed so drastically that our volunteers were being run into the ground, per se, because we were running so many ambulance calls, because we do run calls with the county ambulance. And they were just getting beat up and being dispatched out all the time. We had more career guys at that point. So we started changing the structure a little bit. Guys were starting to retire. There's not as big of an interest in becoming a volunteer as there used to be. The training is a lot more extensive. People don't have the free time anymore. So we are a career department with volunteers. They still call it a combination, but we have 18 career. We have 5 volunteers. Okay. Most of them are more on an auxiliary side, which they're like a support staff. They don't fight fires. We only truly have 1 volunteer that fights fire with us and goes on emergencies. So the makeup of our department has changed so drastically over the last 20 years, but we technically are still a combination, but our volunteer staff is much smaller than what it used to be.
Gotcha. That's good information right there. What are the primary services that the department offers? It's not just the stereotypical getting a cat out of the tree kind of stuff, right?
Correct. And actually, we don't get cats out of trees. People think we do, but we do not. They go up higher in the tree than what we can ever get to them. But obviously, we run emergency calls. 65% of our calls, maybe even pushing 70, are actually EMS calls where we assist the ambulance. That other 25 to 30% would be car accidents, fires, alarms, things along those lines. But when we are not running emergencies, we do a lot of fire prevention, going into the elementary schools and the preschools, teaching fire prevention, CPR. We do a lot of CPR training into the public, car seat inspections, kind of catch-all for everything. But we do have a dive team, a dive rescue team, so we have a percentage of calls that we have divers that go out also.
Is there, you named a lot right there. Is there any one of those interests that kind of interest you more? Is there anything that you kind of lean more towards?
My job leans more towards the education side of it with the community risk reduction. I do a lot of teaching, whether it's little kids or big adults, from CPR all the way down to fire prevention. That's a lot of my job, is the teaching aspect.
And let's talk a little bit more about your role. Is that the role? How long have you had the community risk reduction and administration role?
It will be 2 years in January.
Okay.
So.
And like you said, with your title, it kind of differs from the other operations, that the other firefighters have with their roles. So
correct.
You're kind of more. Is it fair to say you're more public facing?
Correct. I am a lot. We tried to, with the community risk reduction, because it was a new element to our department, new programs. We fall prevention with the elderly,
okay.
And fire prevention with the elderly, because we do have a large portion of our EMS calls that are for falls. So if we can help prevent those falls, we're decreasing our calls, but we're also trying to stop that catastrophic injury from happening, because with a lot of elderly, a fall can mean a broken hip that then turns into a long rehab process, and they don't always bounce back. So we're trying to prevent a lot of things. So starting new programs like that, but also keeping our CPR programs, stop the bleed programs, and our fire prevention with our little kids. So it was a new initiative that we took to try to protect our community a little bit more, but also not beat up our firefighters as much, because our call volume was just increasing every year, and it tended to be on those preventable calls.
Gotcha. Understood. So can we talk a little bit about some of the local partnerships, outside of what you have here with us at the Porter County Health Department? What partnerships are really meaningful to the work that you guys do at the Chesterton Fire Department?
Probably the largest partnership that we have outside of you guys, because we have a couple programs with you guys, is the American Red Cross. We have a Sound the Alarm program with them where they provide 10-year battery life smoke detectors, and our firefighters go in and install free smoke detectors to our residents.
Okay.
It is kind of two-folded. This year we started a new program with our second grade kids in our jurisdiction with a sound off fire safety program, which we are teaching them all about fire safety and smoke alarms, but also when they take home their activities, it's finding out if they have working smoke detectors in their home. So we are then able to get into those homes to kind of get a hand on a whole nother avenue of getting smoke detectors installed in the homes. So by the Red Cross providing those smoke detectors, it has been a huge pleasantful and meaningful program that we have done. This year alone, I think we've installed almost 60 smoke detectors in homes in our area.
That is awesome. And of course, you need these smoke detectors year round, but with the holiday season coming up, we're going to be spending more time in the kitchen. We're going to be cooking more, having more people over. It's important to make sure that those smoke detectors are working properly. You have those batteries in there. Is it fair to say that this is the time of year, kind of heading into this holiday season, where you will see more active calls for like fires and things like that?
I don't want to say yes 100%, but a lot of times holidays where we are cooking a lot, sometimes we will see oven fires.
Okay.
The number one cause of fires is cooking fires. And it can be accidental. It could be, you spilled something in the stove, which caused something. Or a lot of times it's just people have forgotten that they have something in the oven or on the stovetop, and they've gotten sidetracked. They've walked away from whatever they were doing, and the next thing you know, their home is filled with smoke because of whatever was on the stovetop. So whenever there's a big cooking holiday, you will kind of see that uptake, or gatherings and parties, because people aren't as attentive to what they were doing. They may be talking with their, guests that are in their home and might forget about something. But I think across the board, it is a year round, but you may see some uptick in calls around those times.
Understood. Absolutely. Let's talk about your relationship when it comes to the other emergency response agencies. So how do you coordinate with other emergency response agencies, EMS, police, and other neighboring fire departments here in Porter County and nearby areas for certain situations?
Well, when we have just our regular, we have what we call run cards for the central dispatch station. So when a 911 call would come in, our dispatchers are typing in the notes as to what the call is about. We have predetermined run cards that will tell us when we are going with what ambulance, and how that all goes. But we also have those same kind of run cards, but on the fire side, we call them box alarms. So if we have a large incident, it's already predetermined what departments are coming to help us, what kind of apparatus they are bringing, and vice versa, the same thing back to them. And we also do joint trainings with other departments that we are close in our vicinity because we do run fire calls together. We like to train with them so that we know what they're capable of, they know what we're capable of, and we just build that relationship with them so that everybody kind of has an idea of who's coming.
It's important.
Yes.
That teamwork.
Yes.
Understood. So let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about the day-to-day and maybe even becoming a firefighter. So can you walk us through what a typical day in the life of a firefighter is at the Chesterton Fire Station?
Well, we actually have a newer guy here. He's probably only been here less than 2 months now. So his day-to-day looks a little bit different than what maybe our captain of the shift would look like. But in general, as a whole, their day would start with coming in, getting their gear on whatever apparatus they're on, checking to make sure, they have their immediate things that they're going to need. Their air pack, making sure their EMS bag, which would be their bag for medical calls, make sure that's stocked. But then most of our crews from there go and get their physical fitness in for the day. Most people like to get it in first thing in the morning, so they'll spend about an hour, hour and a half, whatever they're doing, lifting weights, cardio. And then from there, it's full truck checks for whatever apparatus need for that day. It varies for the day. Our crews do fire inspections also. There's some sort of training for the day. And then just whatever else, they might have on their agenda. Each crew's a little bit different. Like I said, we have divers, so there may be a dive training one day, so the others aren't partaking in that. But then there's also, each shift usually has that one person that likes to cook. So there'll be that run to the grocery store because they need to get ready to prepare lunch, dinner, whatever the case may be. And then normally business hours, once that is over, things slow down a little bit. Training tries to take place during the day, inspections during business hours. So as the evening winds down, it's more like the home life. You're spending it with your family. The guys could be watching the football game, having dinner. Some of them bring their Xbox with them to work. It all depends in that downtime when they're not running calls.
I think the thing that's most remarkable about you all, I've had the chance to come out. We did a PSA last year for October Safe Sleep Month, and I had the chance to come out there and kind of shadow the department, and I got to kind of see how the call center works, how you guys get calls and whatnot. You guys have to be ready in the drop of a hat. I mean, like you said, you could be preparing lunch, or you could be maybe playing your Xbox, or doing anything, training, getting the weights in and all that. And you have to be ready to drop all that and respond to a call.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about just the psyche that takes?
It's stressful. There's some stress on your body. Definitely that happens because you're going from 0 to 100. And also, the way that we are notified. Most of us have our cell phone on us that we get an active 911. Some sort of message comes to us and lets us know. But we also have tones in our station that are dropping that are very loud. So in the middle of the night, that's a startling wake up for you. And sometimes if we have 2 trucks in service, you're getting woke up even though it's not your call to go on. So it's a stress on your body to go from 0 to 100, but it's things that you acclimate to once you get into the firehouse. You try to think, if you're that person cooking dinner, is it something that I can get interrupted on and come back to? Pasta's a really hard one because once you put it in the water, it's done for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to acclimate. Most guys do it very well. But it's something that you have to figure out. The nice thing is we're in the middle of a remodel of our station, And with this new remodel, we are getting what's called station alerting. So we'll have gentler ways of our guys being woke up, red lights coming on instead of bright lights coming on, a little bit gentler of a way, because studies have found that it is very jarring on your whole body to be woken up out of a dead sleep like that. So that'll be interesting when we move back in, how this whole system works and to see how, the different aspects of it are.
I mean, I can only imagine, because I don't like being waking up from naps. And let alone if I had to get waking up from a nap and then go respond to save someone's life. Does that get better over time as a veteran? Do you think, do you always have to, of course you have to always stay on your toes, of course, but does it get easier, or do you always kind of have that stress on you a little bit?
I think everybody adapts to it differently. Some people, I used to joke with the guys that they could come back from a call and fall back to sleep right away. I, on the other hand, I've just been woken up. I've been on a call. It could have been a very minor call, but my body just needs to kind of reset and get back into that sleep mode at 2 a.m. And sometimes I just couldn't fall right back asleep, and that's just my nature. Other guys, they can fall right back to sleep easily. But some people don't sleep as well at the firehouse because you always kind of have that ear open and you're like, oh, I don't want to fall asleep yet because we're going to get a call. Or so it's just everybody acclimates a little bit differently, and your body adjusts to it. People used to jokingly say, how do you stay up all night if we had a busy night? And then I would come home and I would have little kids at home. And I'm like, my body just deals with it, So everybody's a little bit different in how they acclimate to it, but they all seem to figure it out one way or another.
I understand. I just think that's something that a lot of people don't really realize, that is a big aspect of your job. Like you said, that 0 to 100, and you got to be able to do it just like that. You mentioned something that I was a little bit unaware of. So there's some expanding, some updates that are coming to the Chesterton Fire Station, the building?
Yes. With the new build of the police station, they demoed the old police station, made a new parking lot, but now they have since updated the town hall, which is the chamber for the town council meetings, and the fire department, and we're also getting a 2-story addition too.
Wow.
So yes, our station was never really built for a career staff. It was built well over 50 years ago, and it was made for more of a volunteer staff. So we have always kind of made do and made things work out. So now we will have a beautiful new training room, larger living quarters, a dedicated administration section. So more flow and more square footage, which is nice for a growing department.
That is awesome. Is there going to be a ribbon cutting or some kind of ceremony for this, or is it too early to tell?
No, I would assume that there is. They did a groundbreaking ceremony when the project started, so I would assume this winter when we get moved back in, there'll be a ribbon cutting, walk through, see the new chambers, see the new fireside, and show it all off.
Please keep us updated on that. We would love to let the people know about that. You touched on this a little bit. How do you balance your administrative duties with the field and being a public-facing worker? So you have work that you do behind the scenes, but with your role, like you said, you're facing the public. You're kind of maybe the face of the Chesterton Fire Department.
I wouldn't go that far. No. I am the one that I do a lot of teaching. But no. Well, Chief O'Donnell, he is the face of the fire department.
Well, how do you balance, what you have to do behind the scenes with what you have to do in public also?
It's a scheduling balancing act. Thankfully I'm fairly detailed orientated, so I try to separate my day also. I know when I go in first thing in the morning, I do the same few things every morning so I can get my day going and make sure everything runs smoothly. But I do a lot of planning of things. Then I have my program set. It's kind of nice. We just started a new program, like I said, with our second graders this year. Now that I've got that run rolling, it's kind of an autopilot, and I can just go in and teach it and then go on with, my day. So a lot of scheduling, making sure I have enough time to get everything done. And then I still try, when the day lets me, and if the calls are coming in, I still love to try to get on a couple of calls and get out there and be in the public and helping out and things like that.
Gotcha. Keeps you active, right?
It does. I miss that part of it.
I understand. So we talked a little bit about this also, with this kind of job, staying in shape, being in the best physical shape possible is, it's it's a demand, so to speak. So what kind of trainings and drills and continued education does your team participate in regularly to make sure that you are mentally and physically at your peak?
On the physical side, like I said, most crews start their morning off with their physical fitness. We have weekly trainings. They rotate. Our other deputy chief, he sets that schedule. We always, every month, have a dive training. We also have an EMS training for all of our EMTs on the department. Some sort of structural firefighting training. You know, there's a standard, and every month we try to hit those ones. So there are those weekly trainings and continuing ed, because all of our EMTs have to keep their certification. So they have so many hours every 2 years that they need to get. And then also, most of our firefighters, our older ones especially, are instructors. They teach classes, so they have classes that they have to teach to keep up their hours on that. So there is a lot of continuing ed and learning that goes on, just in different areas, depending upon what each crew needs.
Understood. So for someone who wants to become a firefighter, whether it's in Chesterton, somewhere else in Porter County, or just in general, can you talk a little bit about the process, what qualifications, talk about maybe the tests that you're going to have to pass, some certifications that are required, maybe talk a little bit about your journey again?
Everyone varies a little bit within the county, but most of the career departments are going to require that you have a firefighter 1-2 certification. Some will require that you have an EMT certification, which I talked about that. That was about a 6 to 8 month course when I took it. Right now, I think it's still maybe about a 6 month course. Firefighter 1-2 is about a 6 month course right now. And then, so those two are the big certifications. And then depending upon where you're going, there's usually a physical assessment that they do, whether it's what they call a CPAT test, which you can go to a facility and take that and have the certification and just bring it with you. Or some departments have their own ability test that they want you to run through at the testing site. A written test also, and then there's an interview process. And then there's scores that are compiled from there, and then that's usually how either lists are made, or, if they're only hiring one, that they decide from that point.
What kind of advice would you give someone who wants to take part in that, who wants to prepare for this lifestyle?
I would say start young. The younger you start, I feel the easier it is. You don't have all of those family life commitments. You don't have little kids at home, because there is a lot of time commitment to getting those certifications that I feel if you are on the younger side, it's much easier. Your brain is still in that active learning. The younger you are, it's sometimes as adult learners, it gets a little bit harder. So I am a firm believer that if this is a career path, start young. And even here in our county, we are fortunate enough through our vocational program, there is actually a firefighter vocational that will get you that firefighter 1-2 in 1 school year's time. And then there is also an EMT class that could get you that in 1 year's time. So if somebody planned it right, they could graduate high school with their EMT, their firefighter 1-2, and find a department that accepts you at 18. Some will not until you're 21, but there are some that are hiring at 18.
Gotcha.
So this county is very fortunate that our high school kids have those avenues to try to speed up their process a little bit more.
That is really cool. I did not know that. That's good information right there. Like you say, you got to get to those youngsters where they are.
Yes.
What are some common misconceptions that people have about firefighters? Like I said, rescuing cats out of trees. What are some other misconceptions that you've seen through your time as a firefighter?
That they sit around and do nothing all day.
Of course.
That they sit in their recliners and they do nothing all day. We can only speak for our department. We like I said, we are training, we are out doing inspections, we're doing things. We do have some downtime, and when Chief O'Donnell came 2 years ago, he was a firm believer of, if you have everything done, take a break. If you need to sit down and take a little bit of break, take a little power nap in the afternoon, go ahead. We don't know what the night is going to bring. We don't want our guys to be beaten down all day long doing a bunch of stuff and then be up all night long and not be prepared. So our officers are very good at managing the time, and they know their people very well. And if they need a break, if they need a nap after lunch, sit down, take a little bit of a power nap, or some days are lighter than others. Sometimes The training might be a really hard training that they do in the morning, so they decide they're going to take the afternoon off. They need to recuperate, fuel their bodies some more, because you don't know what the night's going to bring. Other days are really light. We might just have a couple preschool classes that we're teaching and not have anything as physical, so the day might go on a little bit longer. So, but yes, the misconception is that they just sit around and sleep all day.
Which is totally not true.
Exactly.
That is just not the truth. So let's talk a little bit about the skills that make a good firefighter. So what skills or qualities make a good firefighter or a fire department leader, someone that you wouldn't mind lining up next to and putting out a massive fire? What are those qualifications that make them a good teammate?
To encompass kind of both of those, somebody with an open mind. Somebody who is willing to learn from others, but also who's willing to share their knowledge. So especially for our younger, our last couple of guys we hired were on the younger side. They are very open to learning. They're very responsive to learning from our older guys, but then also as you move up the ranks and start to become a leader, you also need to be able to learn the perspective of your younger guys too. You might be set in your ways that we've done for 20, 30 years, but there might be a new way of doing something that they might enlighten you to. So just being open-minded to being able to teach, being able to learn, and just trying to bridge that generational gap, because we have that in our department. I mean, we have some guys that have been on the department 25, 30 years, and we have a couple that have been out of high school 2 or 3 years. So open-minded is probably the biggest one.
I get you. When it comes to technology and safety standards, how have those changed over your time as a firefighter? So, like you said, you got 20 plus years. How has technology kind of changed the way that you attack your position?
I would say just from the cell phone aspect alone, we can find instant answers on our phones. Whereas years ago, you may have to call into our dispatch center to figure something out and have to wait for an answer, or we may have had to flip through a book to find an answer, whereas now you can almost get instant answers just with the computers in our trucks, the phone in your pocket. So technology has opened just the safety aspect too, because you have that instant answer, whereas before, maybe on a hazmat scene, you might have had to flip through a book to find out how far do we need to evacuate, things along those lines, whereas now it's like, all right, 200 yards, this, that, let's go, instant, instead of, maybe 15 minutes.
Gotcha. That is good. Let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about the Roth ID tags. So you're in partnership with us when it comes to these Roth ID tags. Can you explain a little bit what the purpose of these tags are and how they function?
The Roth ID tag came from a family that had been out traveling. There was an accident, had 2 little kids in the car. The adults in the vehicle were not able to communicate with first responders. So you have 2 little small children there that are toddlers, not able to communicate with police, fire, EMS, and 2 adults that were not able to communicate. So you have no idea who these kids are, what their names are, what medical issues they have, who is their next person to call to come take care of these kids. So it was a very interesting story to me, but also we see this. We have the interstate, we have highways, we have the toll road, we have a lot of traffic that runs through our jurisdiction, and a lot of it is out of state. So, it's not just on the local street and you pull up and you're like, oh, hi, it's Mr. Smith, we know them. The interstates, we don't know anybody because it's people traveling. So I thought because of the road work we have through our area, this would be a huge asset to us. So what it is the Roth ID tag is a tag that the parents would fill out basic information about the child, emergency contact if something should happen to that parent, like a grandparent or somebody else, and it sticks on the car seat or the child restraint seat on that child's seat. And in the event that there is a crash, the emergency responders, police, fire, EMS, we would pull this sticker off, and it then turns into a bracelet that we put on the child, so that all of that information is on the child. So whether police transports them, the ambulance transports them to the hospital, all of that pertinent information about that child is with that child. And it's all done prior to a very stressful situation.
Yes, before the accident, or like you said, before that stressful situation occurs. So we have a car seat program where you can just call Kendra, our office manager, and she will help you properly install your car seat. And along with that session, we provide these Roth ID tags also. And you don't have to take part in that program. You could really just come to our front desk at either a health department location in Valparaiso or Portage, and we would give you those if you were to request it. What about Chesterton Fire Department? How do you guys distribute these Roth ID tags?
We do them along with our car seat inspections, and then we also walk-ins to the fire department. People can come in and pick those up. And then other safety events that we do. We are going to be at the community baby shower at the end of this week. That is our big push there, is to get those out to all of the new moms. Whether it's a fire prevention open house that we have, any events that we are at, we normally take the Roth ID tags with us also. And then word of mouth. We try to push it out as much as we can.
How's the community response been so far?
Good. Slower than I originally thought, but it's picking up steam. I know our last event that we did with you guys down at Central Park, our guys gave out quite a few of them down there. So it's starting to pick back up a little bit, but it was a little slow to start. But I think we're finally getting the word out there, and people are getting interested and coming to the station to pick them up.
Understood. Before we get off this segment, is there anything else you want to say about these Roth ID tags, the importance of them, or how they make your job as an emergency responder a little easier?
I would say anybody that has any child and or handicapped person in some sort of restraint seat should seek us out, whether it's the fire department or the health department, and get those, because they are huge asset to the fire and police and EMS, just because we have all of that valuable information on that child. And as a parent, I hope they would feel some sort of sense of relief knowing that if they were in a crash and they were incapacitated and couldn't talk, that they know where their child will go, because we all have that information. So it's a twofold. It takes the stress off of the emergency responders, but as a parent, I feel it would take the stress off of myself too.
Absolutely. You are listening to the PoCo Wellness Hour on WVLP 103.1 FM. We are here with Amy Gilbert of the Chesterton Fire Department. We're about to wrap up our show, but we do have some fun, reflective questions here. We've talked about a lot of serious stuff, a lot of different programs, what it takes to be a firefighter. We've talked about a lot of important stuff here, so we want to end this segment on a little bit of a lighthearted note. Are you okay with that, ma'am?
Sure.
All right. So I've got some fun questions here. I think I sent these to you. I didn't mean to if I did, because I usually like to get an organic response from this. So if you already were prepared for this, it's okay. But if your department had a slogan or a mascot, what would it be? Or maybe you guys already have a mascot that I'm not aware of.
We don't have a mascot. Well, we always jokingly, Daisy, we have a statue of Daisy, who is our dog. It used to be a dog from the fire department that sits out front. Daisy is no longer with us. But Daisy could be like the old school mascot, but we do have a mission statement, not so much of a slogan, but we do have a mission statement, which is to protect the citizens' property and the environment in our community. So that could be our slogan. I mean, it's one of those, each of our crews, it's kind of neat if anyone ever comes to the firehouse, they each have their own crew flag. So every crew, we call A, B, and C crew, they all have a flag, and each flag has some sort of little slogan or design that goes with it. So those are individual to those crews, which is really neat, but I would say our mission statement is probably our slogan.
Understood. So, Amy, if you had one superpower that would help you with this job, what would it be? Would you have the superpower like Mr. Freeze in The Incredibles, where you could just shoot ice and put out a bunch of fires? Or, I don't know, maybe you would want, maybe you'd want Wonder Woman's Tell the Truth. Is that what she does? Wonder Woman? Someone with the truth serum or whatever. Tell me, how did this fire start? What superpower would you want, ma'am?
I would think to be able to see the future. Mm-hmm. Because if I could see the future, I could either stop what potentially could cause an emergency, or we could just get to those emergencies a little bit quicker.
Okay.
So that's probably what I would want to do.
I get that. So when you're out and about, what is your favorite go-to snack or meal after a long shift to kind of keep you on the go?
Ooh. That's an interesting one. I think it depends on the stress of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer on that 24-hour shift where some days you get to eat 3 meals, other days you might not. So I am on the 8 to 4. That is my life. But many of days, I skip meals just because either I'm teaching or doing something. And it depends on the stress level too. If you need that stress relief, sugar high, whichever it is. But I would say my go-to is probably a peanut butter Cliff Bar.
Oh.
I'm a huge peanut butter fan, and it's one of those that just kind of tides me over.
Oh, yeah. Peanut butter, give you that energy, give you that protein.
Yes.
I get you. What is one of the most heartwarming or amusing calls that you've experienced in your time at the Chesterton Fire Department? I keep going back to, you guys don't take the cats out of trees. You guys don't respond to that. Have you guys got like a little kid calling or anything, or anything funny?
There have been numerous times we've taken ducklings out of the storm drain.
Oh.
We've had to send guys down in the storm drain and brought up a bunch of little ducklings. I don't necessarily know if it's a call exactly, but it's those times when I used to be on shift and we would be on the engine, and like I said earlier, we may have been in the grocery store or somewhere and some little kid comes up to you. And I think it hits me a little bit more. We were just at one of our elementary schools and there was a kindergarten girl, and the teacher said, she wants to be a firefighter. She thinks it's so cool that you are here because I am the female that's there. Mm-hmm. So seeing those little girls that now want to maybe go into this job, whether myself or we have another female, Heather Compton, I think that's one of the coolest things that I see is now that maybe might not be us, but maybe it could be something on TV. But when those little girls come up to us and tell us, I want to be a firefighter one day, that's one of those that you're like, that's pretty cool.
Breaking down those barriers.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Amy. So when you were going through your training, what tool were you the most excited to learn how to use? Was it the axe? Was it the big water hose? What tools, when you were going through training, were you like, I can't wait until I get to use that?
Probably because I had heard about it on TV and different things. They always called them the jaws of life on TV. They're cutters to us, spreaders, things like that. But to learn the skill of how to cut a car apart, to get somebody out that's trapped in, that was probably one of the neatest things that I wanted to be like, I want to know how to do that. And I think some of it was coming from an ambulance. I dealt with patient care. That was my job. And to know how to then get the person out, to then have them be able to get to the ambulance, that was something that was really fascinating to me.
Okay. The show, Chicago Fire, do you watch it?
Not religiously, but I have seen it.
Okay. I was just gonna go, of course it's, a fictional show. Mm-hmm. I was just gonna say on a scale from 1 to 10, how realistic is their firehouse? Of course, it's a much bigger city, Chicago, and all that.
Their firehouse?
Yeah, the things that kind of go on there. Just like I said, just show-wise, just funny-wise.
Being an inner city versus us, I can't.
Understand.
It's apples to oranges to us. But, you do see them sometimes out doing drills, training. You see them sitting down as a family eating together. Some of the drama, no. And then, people always ask you their fire scenes. How realistic is that? And I always tell people, you could never have that on TV if it wasn't as far from real as it is. Because for us, a lot of times when we go into a fire, it's pitch black. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be good TV if all you're showing is pitch black. So the fact that they can walk in and see everything, that's not real life for us, because most of the time we can't see anything when we go into a fire. So there's some parts that are, similar, but the fire scenes, a lot of that definitely is not accurate, because it wouldn't be good TV if you didn't see anything. So,
like I said, I've been out to your department. I think you guys would make one heck of a show. Make you guys a reality show. Amy, I want to thank you so much for your time with us here today. Is there anything that you think I left out? Is there any information that you think people should know about any upcoming programs? Maybe how to get a hold of you guys, a website that you guys want to promote, your own socials?
Yes, we have a Chesterton Fire Department Facebook and Instagram page. We put a lot of our community outreach on those sites, upcoming CPR classes, things like that. In the new year, once we're back into our station with our nice new training room, we are going to start doing doing a lot more community CPR classes. So whether you're a nursing student needing it for college, or if you're just somebody that wants the knowledge, watch for those. They will be on our social media pages.
Sounds good. Amy, thank you so much for your time, man. Breaking down barriers and truly an inspiration to the people here in Porter County.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen in Porter County, we hope that you learned something from today's conversation. Remember, a healthy community starts with each and every one of us. So for more information on events and programs and initiatives that we discussed today, you can head over to our website. You can find us on the Porter County government website at portercountyin.gov, or you can go straight to our health department website, which is www.in.gov/localhealth/Porter County. And you can find us on social media, x.com/county_Porter. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Porter County Health DEPT. And you can find us on Instagram at Porter_County HD. This is Demetrius Lewis, Communications Manager for the Porter County Health Department, signing off. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the PoCo Wellness Hour. Have a safe and wonderful week, Porter County. Peace.